Hey guys, Rob here at 3D Printscape. So today I'm going to go over the initial unboxing and setup of the TwoTrees SK1 3D printer. This is a new printer on the market. It's actually only available for pre-sale. I believe it's shipping out at the end of the month, so you won't have to wait long if you decided to go that route. But like I said, this video I'm going to cover the initial unboxing, going through getting it set up, and the first couple prints that I've already sliced on the SD card. And then in the next video I'm going to go into showing you how to connect with Clipper, showing you how to actually use Cura to slice your own STL files. And then I'll probably end up making additional videos on this as well. But those are the two that I have planned currently. Alright, so now let's talk about the printer here for a minute before we dive in. This is advertised as a high-speed printer. They advertise it can do 700 millimeters a second. I think the limitation is going to be the filament, kind of like with a lot of the other Clipper high-speed printers. The recommended speed is probably going to be around 300 or so, which is still really good. The build quality of all the components are good. I know they did have an issue in production which delayed the release, but they fixed that before actually sending the printers out, which was a good sign on the quality on their side, that it was caught and fixed before they're actually releasing it to any type of reviewers or clients. I am starting to see a lot more printers like these on the market. There are several manufacturers starting to make this style where you have the Core XY frame and then your Z-axis goes down instead of up. It seems to be a lot more reliable, a lot more stable, and they're starting to ship with Clipper out of the box, which is cool. Clipper is great. The build volume on this is 256 by 256 by 256, so it's a good size. It doesn't take up that large of a footprint. It's nice and condensed. It's pretty much using the space pretty well, with the exception of maybe the filament spool here on the side. But there's not really a good place to put it. Maybe in the back, but then you're still going to have an issue if you're trying to put it on a shelf or something and actually getting to it. So I think they made it as compact as it can for the size. And like I said, overall it is pretty well built. I haven't seen any issues with any of the hardware. Everything came secure, it was shipped well, and they're using high quality components pretty much across the board. And it is direct drive out of the box, along with having an ABL system by default. This one is a 36 point grid, so 6x6 is what they go with by default. It does take a little bit of time just because it's a lot of points, but it does help with the accuracy of the prints. So if you're doing a bunch of test prints, that could be a little bit of a pain, but if you're just doing normal prints and stuff, the extra minute or two, you make it up with the speed of the printer anyway, so it's fine. Unless you're having some sort of adhesion issue, but I haven't really had that once I got the Z offset dialed in correctly, which I'll mention later in the video. I did have to set it a little bit lower than I normally would. It might just be because of what they're using for the sensors, I'm not sure, but just having it at paper height, I was having some issues where it was too far away from the build plate, clear line spacings indicating that it was too far, but it was easily fixed. Another thing that I thought was interesting is they're using 3 rails for the Z-axis. You got the 2 in the front and 1 on the back, instead of just the 2 on the sides that you'll see in a lot of these types of printers. And when you auto home it, it's actually probing the 3 locations to set the distance or account for the distance. I don't see it moving any of the axes individually, so I'm assuming it's just accounting for it, but I can't say that for sure. When you're in the menu, you can see the individual probe values, and I didn't see much of a difference. They were all within a normal range, so it does keep it pretty level. So let's go ahead and start with the unboxing and going through the setup. Then at the end I'll give you more of my feedback and my thoughts. And if you have any questions about what I'm covering here or would like to see any other videos, go ahead and leave a comment below or join us on Discord. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks. Alright guys, so here's the box the SK1 comes in. It's not too overly large. You can easily handle it with one person. It does weigh about 40 pounds, but it's not too bad. So let's go ahead and open it up and we'll take a look to see what's inside of it. Alright, so I went ahead and moved the box to the floor so we can actually open it up and take everything out. So initial thoughts is, it looks like it's well packaged. We got our foam top here. Then it looks like the printer's pretty much pre-assembled, and it does have the cardboard edges here for the additional reinforcements because it's heavy, and I assume they also stack some of these together. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull the printer out. And with the printer out, that's really all there is in that box. The rest of it is foam, so we're going to move the box out of the way and start setting up the printer. Alright, now with the plastic off, we still have a lot of foam in here, so let's go ahead and remove all the foam. So they definitely spent some time figuring out the best way to ship this so it doesn't get damaged. I mean, it comes pretty much all together. It looks like the screen still has to be attached and a couple of small things, but yeah, it's mostly together, which is nice. All right, now that we have the last couple boxes out, let's go ahead and open them up. This one's gonna be our screen. Again, packaged really nicely. Then I'm assuming we're gonna have all of our power cables and stuff in this one. And the instruction manual, which we'll take a look at here in a minute. So we have a test roll of filament. Looks like the filament spool holder. Power cable. Wi-Fi antenna. SD card, additional nozzle it looks like, and some screws, an adapter card, and a USB drive, which I assume has a lot of the instruction manual and stuff on it as well. Then over here we have a nozzle cleaning kit, a brush here with metal bristles, and some tooling, so some cutters and a screwdriver and some Allen wrenches and some wrenches. So basically everything we need to get started. Before we get started with the setup, I wanted to give my initial thoughts on what I'm seeing here. I like the way this frame is set up. It is definitely solid. It has rails and everything for our axis, which will allow us to get the speeds that they're talking about. I know they say it can go up to 700 millimeters a second. Again, I think the limiting factor here, as in most of the printers that are running the Clipper software, is going to be the filament you're using. The recommended speed is about 300. It does come with an all steel hot end, which can go up to 300 degrees Celsius, and the direct drive kit here. Looks like they spent some time on the cooling setup. It looks like you can actually move a decent amount of air, and then if you're looking underneath it, it's actually pointing the air directly towards the nozzle on both sides, so it's going to cool that filament as it comes out. We got our magnetic build plates here, which slide right into place and then just clip down. It looks like the cable management and everything is very clean as well. We'll get the screen on in a second, so this will just be a screen here, but they use the guides and everything for any of the moving parts. So I'll say overall, this seems like a very solid printer. It seems to be really well built. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, they did have an issue with the first round, and they fixed that ahead of time before shipping these out. I know they wanted to get these out like a couple months ago, but I'm glad that they fixed the issues that they saw during testing before actually letting these go out to any of the reviewers or any customers. So that was a really good move on their part. The overall build area is pretty good. It's 256 by 256 by 256, so it's going to be a little bit bigger than your Ender 3 style printers. And it does have the auto leveling on it. It does the 36-point mesh by default. So let's go ahead and start getting this guy set up. One more thing I wanted to show really quick, which was inside the instruction manual, is they do a complete inspection before shipping it out. So on the back it kind of goes over all the things that they do test. So they do the pin calibrations, check your core XY framework, put together the extruder, 21-step inspection there. I don't want to go and read each one of these line by line because you can see it on the screen, there's quite a bit here, but I thought it was kind of cool that they did do the inspection ahead of it and that they send this card out with it. Alright, so the first thing we have to do for this setup here is remove all the screws they have to keep the axes from moving during shipment. So this kind of shows you where they're all at. You got some on your Z-axis and X and Y as well. So I'm going to go through and grab all those and remove them. Alright, so I don't see anything on the Z-axis that has to be removed. That might have been removed during testing, but there are the ones on the X and Y axis here. Alright, the next thing we want to do is install the filament rack. So that mounts right here. Then if you look at the part itself, it has this slope here, the edge. This goes down. Alright, that's installed. One note here, I I would have liked to have seen this on the top or somewhere where it's not adding additional area, because if you wanted to put this on a shelf or kind of somewhere close to another area, you have to make sure you have space to get into this, so that adds a couple extra inches. Not a big deal, but if it was somehow up top, that wouldn't be required. But then again, it does add more space to the height, so it's more what's needed in your scenario. All right, now we're going to want to go ahead and install the screen. All right, to do that, we're going to want to put the mounting bracket on first. So it's just going to sit like this, basically. Again, you'll notice here at the bottom, it's wider at the bottom than it is at the top. So it's kind of slanting down this way. And then your screen is just going to slide right in. You will want to connect this cable first, so it goes in here like so. Then with that connected, we'll go ahead and slide it into place. Just be careful not to put too much pressure on the cable. Alright, that's connected. Alright, now we're going to put on the antenna and then power it on. The antenna, it's just this little antenna here. It screws right over and on the side next to the power cable. Alright, now that it's booted up for the first time, let's go take a look at the settings. We can see our temperatures here. Control the temperature and everything here. You can change all of that. Your standard library based on Clipper, so if you have anything you sent over to it via Clipper, all of that being here. You kick off the prints. Settings, so your screen brightness, network, and all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and connect my network. So just go in there, select your network, and then you'll put your Wi-Fi password in. And then there's a calibrate section over here, which we'll go to in a couple minutes. Then under here you can get the FAQ, online manual, or contact, just scanning the QR codes. Alright, so first thing I want to do is just do an auto home, make sure all the accesses are working as expected. Then we'll go through and calibrate everything and then kick off a test print. Alright, so to do the auto home, just going to go over to the menu here and just Alright, so let's go ahead and set a Z offset now. We'll go into the menu, go over, settings, go over to calibrate, and then it's going to be the second one over. We'll go ahead and click that, and it's going to start heating everything up, and then we'll use a sheet of paper. I'm actually going to use the inspection card that came with the printer to set the offset. And then from there, we'll go ahead and do a test print. Alright, now that it's up to speed, it's going to go ahead and do an auto home. Alright, now that that has homed, we actually want to do the calibration. So like I said, I'm going to use the inspection card and just slide it under and start lowering the Z offset just by a little bit each time until it catches just a little bit. So right now there's a pretty big gap. So I'm going to start a little bit higher, so 0.1 each time. Alright, so now I'm at a point where I'm starting to feel it just a little bit, so I'm going to change the height adjustment from 0.1 to 0.02, and then go down just a little bit further. Okay, so now I'm getting just a tad bit of resistance, so I'm going to say that's good there, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and it's going to save those settings. Now we're going to kick off a test print. So we're going to go and load the filament, the test roll they provided, and kick off one of the tests that they provide on the USB stick. Alright guys, so one thing I wanted to point out, it's a little bit different on this printer than it has been for other printers I've had, is I actually had to set the Z offset a little bit lower than I would have on pretty much any other printer. So doing it the same way I normally do, where I just let the paper just scratch right underneath it a little bit, it ended up not being close enough to the build plate. You can see here there's a lot of gaps, so I ended up having to go through the Z offset wizard again and get it a lot tighter. I would say you want to get it to the point where it's a little bit difficult to move the paper. Once I got to that point, I was able to go from these to this, which looks a lot better. It's not really an issue, just more something I wanted to let you guys know. Alright, so to go ahead and load the filament, let's go ahead and jump over to this section right here, you want to set your hot end temperature because you need it up to running temperature for the filament. So I'm just going to do 190. And okay, that's going to heat up. And now we're going to take the filament and go and put it on the wheel over here. And then just start to feed the filament through the loading tube here till it gets to the hot end. Then we'll use the actual controls to get it the rest of the way through. And while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and home it really quick. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and lower the Z-axis a little bit so we can purge some filament through. Then go into load, unload, and go ahead and hit load. You can set your nozzle temperature here as well. Just going to go to 190, which I already had it to, and load. And I'm going to just push the filament through a little bit once it starts to grab it from the extruder. Now you can start to see some of the white filament come out. I like the fact that it has a load and unload functionality built into it. It's nice. Alright, now that that's done, we can go ahead and put the USB stick in and kick off our test print. Just go ahead and connect that. And then if we go back to this folder here, we should see everything from USB. Alright, so there's a couple boxes they have here for calibration and then Benchy. Let's go ahead and do a box and then we'll kick off the Benchy. Just go ahead and select it, hit print. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to slice your own stuff with Cura, connect to Clipper from the computer, send everything over, and really make use of the printer besides just the G-code files that have already been sliced. We went ahead and changed the camera angle a little bit so that when this kicks off, you'll be able to see it. Alright guys, so that covered the unboxing and everything you needed to do to get to printing your first couple prints. Like I said, in this example, I used the ones that were already sliced on the SD card as example prints, but in the next video, I'm going to show you how to set up Cura so that you can slice your own stuff and send it to the printer, either with the USB or SD card or via Clipper. Which is the preferred way in my opinion. Now I wanted to spend a couple minutes to give you guys my initial thoughts on the printer. I think overall, which I've alluded to a couple times, it seems really well built. They use quality components and it works well. Got to get used to a couple of the little things, like I had to set the Z offset a little bit lower than I would have, but that's not a big deal. I would say this is a solid printer, and at the price point it's very appealing. The one thing I think that could be done a little bit better is the documentation only shows you the setup. It doesn't go into what you actually need to do to calibrate the Z offset or go through really anything once it's actually connected and power on. There were some videos that I found online that covered some of it, but if you're somebody who's new to 3D printing and just getting a printer like this for the first time, I think it's challenging to get to the point where you're going to be able to start using it without issues, just because you got to figure out all those little things that need to be done still. It's not much, but if they just added another document and gave a quick start guide or something with the printer itself, that would help quite a bit, especially for newer members in the 3D hobby. And then looking at the actual print quality here, these are straight off of the build plate. I didn't mess with them at all or didn't try to clean them up. There's only a tad bit of stringing, which is very minimal. And besides that, the prints turned out really good, so I was quite pleased with the print quality. Like I said, I'm going to be testing it more once I get Cura configured to work with it. But I would say with the ones that they had pre-sliced, they just worked. You just kicked off the print, walked away, you came back, it was done. And I think Benchy here only took like 15 minutes, give or take, maybe a tad bit longer, but nothing compared to like the non-Clipper based printers. Clipper just really is bringing a lot to the table, and I think more and more printers are going to start adopting the firmware. Makes it a little bit harder if you haven't used it before, if it's not already set up properly, but if it's come and set up and configured out of the box, people won't have any issues using it. If you have any specific questions about the printer or like to see any other details on the printer, feel free to reach out. I'll try to give you as much information as I can. And if there are any other videos you'd like to see, go ahead and leave a comment below or join us on Discord. Thanks.